Taehyung remained frozen in the yard of Grandma Lee's house, his eyes fixed on the door that had just slammed shut after Yewon bolted inside. Her sudden confession, that she didn't view him as a brother and harbored romantic feelings for him, had left him utterly speechless. His mind went blank. He stood there in a daze, trying to process every word that had just poured out of her mouth. For years, he had fortified their relationship behind the status of siblings, but seeing Yewon explode and blame his possessiveness for her feelings made his world stop spinning. He was lost in a whirlpool of emotion. He didn't know if he should be angry, sad, or strangely happy. Under the dim light of the gazebo, Taehyung stood in silent shock, looking completely adrift. Inside the house, Grandma Lee caught a glimpse of Yewon rushing past. She intended to greet her, but the elderly woman hesitated when she saw her favorite granddaughter heading straight for her room with a devastated expression. "Grandma Lee, what's wrong with her?" she whispered in confusion. Worry led Grandma Lee out to the yard. There, she found Taehyung still standing like a statue, his face wearing a strange expression, as if he had just been struck by a massive, unavoidable truth. "Grandma Lee, did they have a fight?" she murmured, sensing the thick, suffocating awkwardness between them. Meanwhile, inside her room, Yewon instantly turned the lock. Her tears flowed faster, her breath hitching in her chest. She hit her head repeatedly, cursing the runaway emotions that had led her to reveal her deepest secret to Taehyung. "It's going to be so awkward after this," she thought, lamenting her own stupidity. Yewon felt like a fool for letting her anger over Taehyung's possessiveness blow her cover. She threw herself onto the bed, burying her face in the pillow and sobbing uncontrollably. Amidst her tears, the image of the trident tattoo on Yewon and the man in the abandoned building felt miles away, eclipsed by the shame and sorrow breaking her heart that night. Jeju, 7 p.m. That night, the dining room, which should have been warm, felt chillingly tense. Grandma Lee glanced repeatedly at Taehyung and Yewon sitting across from each other, but they looked like strangers who had accidentally shared a table. There was zero interaction, no bickering, not even a smile. This cold silence was a stark departure from their usual dynamic, and Grandma Lee could feel a vast chasm had opened between them. She chose to stay quiet for the time being, not wanting to worsen the mood with questions they weren't ready to answer. Taehyung occasionally lifted his gaze to steal a look at Yewon. However, Yewon remained bowed, focused on her plate as if the food were the most important thing in the world. Smothered by the silence, Taehyung finally set his spoon down. He downed a glass of water quickly and stood up. "Taehyung, I'm finished, Halmoni. I'm heading to my room." He spoke flatly. Without waiting for a response or even looking at Yewon, he walked away, leaving a lingering trail of cold energy in the room. Yewon gripped her spoon so hard her knuckles turned white. She fought to control her expression, steadying her breath so she wouldn't break down in front of her grandmother. "Grandma Lee, did you two fight?" she finally asked, breaking the silence. Yewon simply shook her head. "No, Halmoni." "Grandma Lee, what do you mean, no? You're acting like strangers, you clearly had a fight, didn't you?" She pressed gently but firmly. Yewon chose silence, forcing herself to keep chewing even though the food tasted like ash. Grandma Lee, sighing deeply, "It's not like you two to be this way. Is the problem that serious? Don't stay angry for too long. You are siblings, it's not good to be like this." Hearing the word, siblings, from Grandma Lee's lips made In's gaze turn mournful. She looked up at her grandmother's weathered, worried face. "Halmoni, would you be angry with me if I told you I love Taehyung?" In's heart screamed in pain. "Would you react just like he did?" "Grandma Lee, Yewon ah," she called out, seeing her granddaughter staring into space. Yewon quickly looked away, blinking rapidly to neutralize the tears pooling in her eyes. "Yewon, yes, Halmoni, don't worry. Taehyung and I will be fine," she said with a slight tremor in her voice, forcing a fake smile. Grandma Lee finally smiled with relief and nodded, unaware that behind the words, fine, a heart was shattering into a million pieces. On his dark balcony, Taehyung sat alone, staring blankly into the pitch-black woods. There was no sound of the ocean, only the rhythmic chirping of crickets among the trees, adding to the eerie silence. But the sounds of nature were drowned out by In's voice echoing in his head like a storm. Taehyung gripped his hair, his breath heavy with mounting frustration. He never expected to be trapped in a situation this complex, that Yn actually loved him. Honestly, Taehyung didn't know what to do. His logic felt paralyzed. His feelings were a mess of shock, confusion, and something much deeper that he wasn't yet ready to define. He took a long, shaky breath in the damp night air and closed his eyes, massaging his throbbing temples. Taehyung. Yn likes me, he whispered so softly, as if he still couldn't believe his own words. Tock tock tock. A knock at the door pulled him back to reality. He opened his eyes to see Grandma Lee standing there. Taehyung stood up immediately and guided her gently to a chair on the balcony. Instead of taking the other chair, he sat on the floor, resting his head on his grandmother's lap. Grandma Lee instinctively stroked his hair with affection. Grandma Lee, you rarely visit me. If Yn weren't here, you wouldn't have made the time to come, would you? Taehyung stayed silent, enjoying the touch of her aged hands without trying to defend himself. Grandma Lee, you came all the way to Jeju to follow Yn, so why are you fighting now, Taehyung, we aren't fighting, Halmyeoni. Just a small issue. Everything will be fine, you don't need to worry. Grandma Lee just nodded, though she knew it was something much heavier than a small issue. Taehyung, Halmyeoni, I'm going back to Daegu tomorrow. I can't leave my work for too long. Grandma Lee, sighing, and here I was hoping you'd stay longer. For now, I can't stay, Taehyung thought. Yn needs space, and so do I. I need to clear my head before I face her again. He admitted to himself that his retreat to Daegu was a way to escape the haunting awkwardness in the quiet house. The next day proceeded normally, but the atmosphere in the house felt empty. After breakfast, Yn sat in the living room with her grandmother. Her eyes occasionally drifted toward the second floor, looking for the figure who hadn't shown his face all morning. Even when the dining room was filled with the scent of breakfast, his chair had remained empty. Yn remained silent, unwilling to ask even though her chest felt tight with curiosity. Grandma Lee, oh, I forgot to tell you, Taehyung went back to Daegu. He left very early this morning. Grandma Lee said, breaking the quiet. Yn froze for a moment, her hands clutching her phone. He's avoiding me, she thought bitterly. Yn simply nodded, offering a forced, thin smile. She took a deep breath, trying her best to neutralize the surge of sadness. She then focused on her laptop, attempting to drown herself in work. Her fingers moved nimbly across the keyboard, scouring dark data for the mastermind behind her adoptive mother's murder. She kept probing the system for mafia groups that provided hitmen, but the result was nil. None of them had a specialized unit like that. If this keeps up, how will I ever find the person who killed Ioma? Yn thought, frustrated. I'm certain they hired a professional. But I can't find a single trace. How do you even hire them if there's no server or base of operations? Yn exhaled heavily, partially closing her laptop. Grandma Lee, I wonder why she hasn't picked up since yesterday. Grandma Lee murmured, staring anxiously at her phone. Yn, who, Halmyeoni. Grandma Lee, Yewon, she hasn't come home yet. She hasn't contacted me at all, and her phone is off. Yn, stunned, so that woman hasn't come back. Without wasting a second, Yn grabbed her phone. Obtaining Yewon's IP address was no trouble for her. She had detected it and planted a silent tracker while tailing her the day before. In's brows knitted when she saw the red dot on her screen located at the border of Jeju Island. What made it weirder was that it was deep in the middle of a forest. What is this? What is she doing there? YN wondered suspiciously. She initiated advanced wiretapping. Seconds later, a string of texts and voice messages flooded in. She was horrified to see they were death threats directed at Yewon. YN quickly put on her earphones and played a voice message. Say goodbye to your family now, because today is your last day. The cold voice made In's blood run cold. YN. Sheet. YN stood abruptly, grabbing her jacket and car keys. Halmoni, I'll be back late. I'm sending some bodyguards to watch over you here, she said firmly, bolting out before her grandmother could respond. YN drove at high speeds, cutting through the chilly morning air of Jeju. She cursed as a traffic light turned red, hindering her race against death. Without a second thought, she veered off the road, taking a shortcut through the dew-drenched trees. The distance to the border was significant, and every second was vital for Yewon's life. Yewon, you're going to pay dearly for this, she muttered coldly, flooring the gas pedal through the thin forest fog. Meanwhile, in an old building in the woods, Yewon was praying silently. The morning sunlight through the cracks in the walls felt painful. Luck was slightly on her side as her pursuer had been delayed. However, her terror peaked when the Jeju branch head of the community finally arrived an hour later. Yewon, please, just once, I promise I'll pay that man back, sir. Yewon sobbed, her body shaking violently. Branch head, unfortunately, there are no more chances for you. It's been 2 weeks since the client hired you, and you were too stupid to finish the job. That man has threatened to expose this community. If the big boss hears about this, it's over for all of us. He spoke with a deadly, flat tone. Begin, don't kill her immediately. Let her suffer first. A cruel smirk crossed his face. The torture began in the silence of the morning forest. Yewon screamed as punches, slaps, and a dagger strike to her abdomen hit her. But the psychopathic act stopped instantly when a loud shout echoed through the room. Oi! Everyone turned at once. They were shocked to find a beautiful woman standing there, wearing a sweet smile that felt terrifying in the bright morning light. Branch head. Moya, who are you? YN. Me. YN pointed to herself casually. I'm the sister of the woman you're torturing. In's gaze instantly turned ice cold. Yewon, on the verge of losing consciousness, slowly opened her eyes. She was stunned to see YN there. How did she find this place? Branch head. Sister. He chuckled dismissively. Hey Yewon, I didn't know you had a sister this beautiful. You should have said so earlier, I would have traded your life for hers to cover the losses. YN gave a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. She pulled a heavy canister from her jacket pocket and picked up a piece of wood near her feet. With the fluid motion of a baseball player, she tossed the canister up and struck it. Brack. The canister flew like a bullet, hitting one of the members in the head, dropping him instantly with a serious wound. YN, UWWW, nice shot, she said casually, tossing the wood aside and dusting off her palms. Branch head. Damn it. Get her. YN, smirking, actually, I'm the one who's going to finish you. The fight broke out in a flash. YN drew a sharp dagger. Her movements were professional, agile, and calculated, the hallmark of Mr. Kim's training. It didn't take long for her to take them down. Finally, she pulled a pistol from her back pocket. Door. With pinpoint accuracy, the men fell dead, including the branch head. Yewon watched it all, gasping for breath. She couldn't believe YN had wiped them all out alone in minutes. YN, sighing, what a hassle, she said, walking over to Yewon. Yewon, why you? Groaning as she held her bleeding stomach. YN, don't talk. I'm getting you out of here. Kaja. YN supported Yewon's weak body toward her car parked deep in the woods. At the car, YN adjusted the passenger seat so Yewon could lie back. She grabbed the medical kit always kept in her grandmother's car. Taking a deep breath, she slowly pulled the dagger from Yewon's abdomen and worked to stop the bleeding. Yewon. How did you find me? Yn. Now isn't the time to talk. Once you've recovered, you can talk all you want, but only to answer my questions. Yn said coldly, her focus entirely on the wound. Once the bleeding was under control, Yn rushed back to Grandma Lee's house. The grandmother nearly fainted at the sight of Yewon covered in blood. Questions rained down on Yn, but she calmly lied, saying Yewon's family had a massive debt and the debt collectors had tortured her for a late payment. The kind-hearted grandmother believed her and even offered to pay it off. Yn quickly cut her off, saying the matter was settled and those people wouldn't return. Three days later, Yewon began to improve, though she still couldn't move much. But Yn, being impatient, pressured her for an explanation. Yn, spit it out, she said curtly, standing by Yewon's bed. Yewon, looking at Yn irritably, so impatient, fine, I'll tell you everything. But first, you have to be honest with me. What do you do for a living? You're too good at shooting and fighting, are you a cop? If you are, I'm not saying a word, you'll just throw me in jail. Yn, closing her eyes, restraining her temper, I'm not a cop. Talk before my patience runs out. Yewon, then what are you? I won't talk unless you tell me your profession. Yn, I'm a mafia. Happy now. Now start talking, she shouted in frustration. Yewon, no wonder you're so good. Fine. I joined a community founded 60 years ago. I joined a year ago to make money and. Yn, I don't care when it was founded. Get to the point. What is the name of this community and what do you do? Yn cut her off. Yewon, tisk, this girl, the community's name is Mordenar. And it is. Yewon paused, looking deep into In's eyes. A community of hitmen. In's eyes widened. Her world seemed to stop for a second. Mawo. Yewon. I noticed you always stealing glances at my wrist. This tattoo is the symbol of a hitman. When I first met your grandmother, I lied about being chased by robbers. Those weren't robbers, they were men sent by the client who hired me. Yewon explained that their community operated on a pay first, act later system. However, Yewon had made a mistake. Her target was far cleverer than she expected, and she failed the mission. Yewon, and in our community, we have rules. One of them is that if you fail a mission, the operative must pay the damages. If not, the community bears the loss, with the condition that the one who failed must be killed. Yewon, I'm so grateful you saved me, but I still can't rest because I haven't paid the client back. If I don't, the community is at risk. That man will expose us to the public. Yn, tisk, that rule is insane. If a mission fails, the money should be returned, not spent by the leaders and then billed to the operative, especially when the operative is part of the community themselves. Yewon could only let out a long, weary sigh. She hadn't given a single thought to the fine print of that contract or the severity of the rules before. At the time, the only thing on her mind had been the money. Yn, money is important, and we all need it, but don't let it turn you into a fool who's easily exploited. How much is the reimbursement? In's question made Yewon snap her head toward her in surprise. Yewon, why you're going to pay it for me? But it's a massive amount, Yn, just tell me how much. She replied curtly. Yewon, 68 million Korean won. Yn, fine, I will give you the 68 million Korean won, on one condition, you have to help me. Yewon, help you with what? Yn, my adoptive mother was murdered, and to this day, we still don't know who the mastermind is. Yewon, and how exactly can I help you? I'm not a detective. Yn, there is a high probability my mother was killed by a hitman. That's why you need to help me find the one responsible. Even if the killer isn't from your specific community, you already know the inner workings of how hitman circles operate, and you surely know of other hitman organizations, don't you? Yewon nodded slowly. So, what do you say? Can you help me? Yewon, pausing for a moment to weigh the massive offer. All right, I'll help you. A faint smile played on In's lips, and Yewon mirrored the expression. The next day. This morning, Yn was in the backyard, sitting in silence as she waited for Yewon to finish her checkup with Grandma Lee's private doctor. She used the quiet morning air among the trees to check her phone. Usually, Taehyung would bombard her screen with calls every second or send a barrage of possessive, lecturing texts. But now, there wasn't a single missed call or a single incoming message from him. Total silence. Yn, sighing. Right, it's better this way. So we can maintain our boundaries. She whispered softly to herself. Yn closed her eyes, letting the morning crickets fill the void of the silence. Her memory drifted back to a few days ago, the moment her emotions finally shattered and she accidentally laid her deepest feelings bare to Taehyung. Yn, you and I are just brother and sister, and that's a fact. Yn thought, trying to steal her heart. From the very beginning, the way you treated me was wrong, and the way I felt was wrong, too. We can discuss this later if you're still sleepy, someone said suddenly, making Yn flinch. She snapped her eyes open and turned toward the voice. It was Yewon. Yn, no, sit down. I'll show you. Yewon took a seat beside Yn. Without wasting any time, Yn pulled up the photos of her murdered adoptive mother on her phone screen. Yewon studied the images meticulously, examining every detail of the wounds and the victim's positioning. Yewon, nodding. Extremely clean, this is definitely the work of a professional hitman. Yn, I know, you're all trained before being given a mission, right? Yewon, of course. We start with lessons on human anatomy, followed by killing techniques and methods to deceive the people around us. Yn, yeah, I'm curious about how you guys evade CCTVs. The killer who took my Ioma didn't disable the street cameras at all. He only shut down the internal house cameras, that's why it's been so hard for us to identify him. Yewon, we are issued a specific cloak. I don't know what the outer layer is made of, but when you wear it, you become invisible to surveillance cameras and CCTVs. Yn, nodding. So, how do we find out who killed my Ioma now? Yewon, the documentation book. Yn, documentation book. Yewon, every hitman community keeps a documentation book containing the names of targets, along with the day, month, and year. Not only that, but the names of the clients who hired us are listed there too, right alongside our names. Yn, really? Why would they keep a record like that? Yewon, to prove the demand for our services, of course, to show we are reliable. The more people hire you, the more others trust that you can get the job done right. Yn, so the key is that book, we just need to figure out which community the killer belonged to. Yewon, you're from Daegu, right? Did this happen in Daegu? Yn nodded. I know a few hitman bases in Daegu, including one for our community. I can get in just by showing my tattoo and community card. Yn, smiling. Then what are we waiting for? We need to get to Daegu immediately.